So we welcome everyone to this year World Logic Day workshop. This is already the third of our annual World Logic Day workshops. As you all know, today we celebrate the World Logic Day. This date is dedicated to two great logicians, Kurt Gödel, who died on January 14, 1978, and Alfred Tarski, who was born on January 14, 1901. So today we have three great speakers with us, and our first speaker today is Luca San Mauro from Vienna University of Technology. Okay, so Luca, please.
Okay, so thanks, Kolya, a lot, and in fact, thanks to both of you and Manat to invite me. It's really nice for me to be here in this setting, and in fact, as you already know, I have wonderful memories of my time in Kazakhstan, and so it's really nice to be there again, at least. Well, only virtually, right, for the moment, but it's nice to share this day with you. So I guess this title sounds perhaps too generic and too broad, right? So let me try to specify a little bit what I mean by that. So I wanted to take this opportunity of speaking at the World Logic Day to try to a little bit overview what I consider to be a success story of logic, of applying logic to general mathematics, so showing how logic techniques can be successful in tackling algebraic problems, right, in particular. And in fact, how one can actually revisit a long-standing trend of research, which will be that of studying the complexity of our problems through new techniques, right? So, and everything I'm going to say today, well, a lot of it will be just a sort of rather discursive overview, right, in our problems and using computability theoretic technique to study the complexity of our problems. But then I will also offer you a number of more recent results, and these are joint work with Valentino Delle Rose and Andrea Sorbi. Okay. So I will start by telling you something about word problems, right? What they are, how they're motivated, and really try to emphasize a lot, as promised, this idea that even though they emerge from algebra, and in fact they are considered to be fundamental problems by the very algebraists that introduced this class of problems first, they turn out to be, a full analysis of the word problems, and in fact, of the unsolvability of the word problems turn out to be possible only through logic techniques, and in fact, computability theoretic ones. Then I will tell you about my favorite topic, right, or at least one of those, right, C equivalent solution, also known with the acronym SEERS, or in the Russian literature as positive equivalent solutions, right? This will be for an obvious reason, right? Word problems of recursively presented algebra, as we will see, are in fact SEERS, are best represented as SEERS, right? And so I will give you a really brief and very, very sketchy and cherry-picking presentation of SEERS, just very much oriented to trying to developing this bridge between word problems and SEERS, okay? And then I will discuss a little bit a question from Gao and Gerdes about essentially the complexity of semigroup word problems, right? I will tell you something about the solution of this problem, but in fact, how this solution itself raises many, many more questions about which kind of SEERS one can realize up to the measure of complexity we will consider known as computable reducibility through semigroups, and in particular finitely generated semigroups, right? This will be possibly the main topic of this talk. And then finally, I will conclude with what shall count as a dessert, right? I don't know how much time I will have to expand it, but if time permits, I would like to say a few words about a very fascinating problem, still an open one, which is somehow aiming to connecting algebra through the lens of word problems and arithmetic, and in fact, piano arithmetic, right? And we'll ask about the possibility of realizing the notion of arithmetical probability as the word problem of a group, right? I will say much more about that. Okay, so let's start with word problems, right? So consider this kind of conceptual problem, right? The idea of presenting an algebraic structure, right? So you have a given variety, supposedly a familiar one, and you would like to present a member from that variety, right? So this typically has too many interpretations. If you ask that to a computable theorist, right, or specifically one working in computable structure theory, typically they would tell you that a presentation of A is just an isomorphic copy of the algebra you would like to present with a certain computable domain, right? So you don't want the complexity to be hidden in the domain, right? And so all the complexity will come from the functions and also relations in general on the language of your algebra. So this is a very mainstream approach, of course. It has been initiated by Maltsev and Rabin. And again, I mean, this really postulates that the complexity of the algebraic structure you're considering comes from the complexity of its operations, right? Okay. And then, of course, I mean, this is exactly the starting point of view that then lead to what are the most fundamental notion of contemporary computable structure theory, right? So think about the notion of the degree spectrum, right? So the collection of altering degrees of copies of a given structure A you're interested in, okay? So, but on the other hand, I mean, so this would be the mainstream computable theoretic perspective to the problem of presenting an algebraic structure. But in algebra, they tend to have a different approach, right? So one not really deals with structures whose algebra structure is in fact easy to describe, right? What is hard to know is whether two terms would represent the same element or not. So you have a second approach, right? So you may say that an algebra is presented by a collection of generators, and then a collection of relations which are just equations that somehow constrains the behavior of your algebra, right? These are equations between generators. And then eventually what you will have it is that the algebra you're referring to is the quotient of the term algebra modulo the equivalent solution generated by the relators you're considering, right? Now, this second approach is very much natural, and of course, I mean, you're very much familiar with that. If you have that both the generators and the relations are finite, you would say that the algebra is finitely presented. If they are both computable, I would like to say that they are recursively presented, right? Try to separating the terminology for the second approach from the terminology for the first approach, right? And finally, if you only require the class of generators to be finite, you may say that A is finitely generated. Okay, so all of that, it's very much straightforward and plainful, right? So for instance, I mean, you can denote the cyclic group, so for their n through this presentation, right? So easy as that. Now, as aforementioned, the first approach is more mainstream, right? I would say in computability theory, but of course with exceptions, right? Here I only mentioned two names, that of Selivanov and Kusainov, but there are other exceptions. There have been people that trying to study algorithmic issue arising from the second approach, and Frank Stephan is another name that comes to the mind. And this is exactly the approach we would like to adopt here, right? We would like to try to investigate algorithmic questions that that emerge by considering the second approach, right? The one which is closer to algebra. And to some extent, let me actually stress that the second approach is as much expressive as you may wish, right? Since by the first isomorphism theorem, I guarantee you immediately that every countable algebra would arise as a quotient of the free algebra with countably many generators, right? So any algebra you would like to refer to, you can actually refer to it in such a way that the complexity would be all hidden in the equivalent solution, right? Okay. So, and specifically, we would like to focus on word problems. So let me give you a crash history on word problems, right? So this dates back to the very beginning of 20th century, right, in the work of Max Den. And then formulated what he considered to be the three most fundamental problems of group theory. This is how he presented those, right? So one was the isomorphism problem, right? To decide if two finitely presented groups are isomorphic or not. One was the conjugacy problem, and the third one, the third class of problems which are interested in and will be the main focus of this talk, were the word problem, right? So the word problem for a finitely represented group G is just the problem of deciding if two words in the generators of G refers to the same group element, okay? And of course, in the case of group, this is exactly the same of asking for given words U and V, whether U times V inverse is equivalent to the identity in the group, right? So this immediately follows from the group axioms. But of course, I mean, beyond groups, you can define word problems for any recursively presented algebra you may wish. In this talk, we will say many things about semigroups, right? And from now on, let me just denote the equality, right? The equivalent solution where with respect to your quotienting, just like that, right? Equality A, where A is the algebra. Okay. So there are cases in which the word problem is readily solved, right? Suppose I tell you that the group is free, right? And I would like you to decide the word problem. Then, of course, I mean, it will be immediate to check if two words U and V refers to the same group element, right? If it is free, you have no constraints apart from those given by the group axioms. So it is enough to cancel all these subwords of this form, right? And then check whether U and V coincide bit by bit, right? In this case, it's just trivial. But what about the general case, right? And here we have something I think historically remarkable, right? So then himself, when introducing this problem, he stated that the problem seems to be extremely hard, right? Even with very few generators and defining relations, right? Now, notably, what happened later it is, well, if you think about that, the conceptual missing piece, right, was exactly a clear understanding of what is a decision procedure, right? So without knowing what would be an acceptable method to solve the group problem, the word problem for groups, if that method turned out to exist, right, you would have no way to actually obtain a negative result, right? Now, the landscape changed entirely with the foundation of computability theory, and interestingly, in 1936, Church conjectured the word problem for group to be a reasonable candidate, right, for a case of algorithmic insolvability in general mathematics, right, for a class of problems not directly connected with computation, right? Okay, and that turned out to be the case, right? First, independently, in the 40s, Post and Markov proved the unsolvability of word problems for semigroups, right? And in particular, that there is a finitely presented semigroup with unsolvable word problem. And it took 10 years more, right? And a much more sophisticated algebraic techniques to solve in the negative the word problem for groups, right? Novikon and Boone, again, independently proved that there is a finitely presented group with unsolvable word problem. Okay, and let me just very quickly, right, tell you how one would prove that in the case of semigroups, right? After all, the emphasis of this talk will be mainly on semigroups, right? Now, semigroup, it is fairly straightforward, right, to obtain the unsolvability of the word problem for semigroups. And of course, the idea is just to simulate an arbitrary Turing machine in the relations of a certainly finitely presented semigroup. So how would you do that? Well, suppose your Turing machine has this given alphabet, right? So obviously a finite one, and also a finite collection of internal states, right? And it's convenient to specify one of the states as the terminal one, QH, okay? Then to emulate this through a semigroup, right, you would like somehow to specify this collection of relations, right, in such a way that you would encode the behavior of the Turing machine, right? So first of all, as generators, you would have generators corresponding to all the class of internal states, so all the Q, right? And also generator corresponding to all symbols of the alphabet, together with one additional generator H will play the role of an halting word, right? We would say half. So, and then the encoding is really straightforward, right? So let me just state this example a little bit. So suppose your Turing machine is given by quadruples, or quintuples, right? So suppose that you have this quintuple, of course, stating that if you are in this state and you scan this symbol, then you replace with this other one and you go right? And then, I mean, a straightforward encoding into the word problem of a finitely represented semigroup will be just a relation that is exactly stating like that, right? If you have a word of this form with this state together with a pair of symbols, right, then you would like to equate this to a word that is somehow represented the shift to the right of this state, right? So straightforward like that. You would do that similarly to the for the other set of quintuples representing the shift to the left, right? And finally, I mean, you have this H symbol, and these H symbols will be markers of the relevant part of a word, right? So and finally, you would like, remember that QH is your terminal state. You would like the generator QH to be a very specific equivalence class in the word problem of the finitely represented semigroup, constructed in such a way that you would absorb any word containing WH to WH itself. So basically, you would collapse any word containing WH to WH, right? Now, if you do that suitably, that is not too hard to show that, right? That M without, you will have a terminating computation on the Turing machine M with input Y, if and only if you have this, right? That the word in which encoding Y will be HYH, right? This will be equivalent in the semigroup to QH, okay? So this is exactly the kind of encoding you would like to. Notice that a little bit of care is taken, right? Perhaps more than a little bit, right? Some care is taken in the verification of this result, especially because, I mean, the computation of the Turing machine is directed, right? While, of course, the equality that you have in the semigroup is symmetric, right? So somehow you would like to have unwanted fake backward computation, right? But this can be assured that it is not the case. Okay. So, of course, if you do like that, you would be able to reduce the halting problem for any arbitrary Turing machine to that of the word problem of the so-constructed semigroup. And so, in particular, if you start with a universal Turing machine U, you would actually have that corresponding word problem would be unsolvable. Okay, so straightforward. So, by the way, notice that the same strategy would not apply to groups, right? The context of group is much harder, right? And essentially, for instance, notice that we have formulated our relations in such a way that any word containing WH would be equivalent to just a singleton WH, right? But this in a group would basically trivialize all the group, right? Collapsing everything to the end, right? So, for instance, cancellativity is an issue. There are some strategy that would work for cancellation semigroups that has been devised already by Turing, but to make it work with groups, you need more techniques, and this was eventually done with the Novikov-Boone constructions, right, which imply HNN extensions, etc., etc. Okay, so and then the next question you would imagine would be, okay, so what about the complexity of word problems? I mean, once we know that there are finitely represented, say, groups, right, with unsolvable word problems, what would be the complexity of these word problems, right? What will be the class of Turing degrees that are realized by word problems of finitely represented groups, right? And there was a full industry of work about that in the 60s, kind of an hot topic of research connecting algebra and computability theory. And people proved that the word problem of a finitely represented group can be of any C Turing degree, and that turned out to be the case also for semigroups, right? So if one take that superficially, you may suspect that, well, so this means that groups apparently can realize word problems of any possible complexity. This would be the case also for semigroups, right? So naively, you may say, well, we have no way of distinguishing groups and semigroups according to the word problems that they realized, right? Up to this very robust measure of complexity, which is given by Turing reducibility, right? Well, this is not really the case, right? This would be a very naive interpretation of what's going on, right? In fact, I mean, groups and semigroup word problems tend to be fairly different with each other. So, for instance, I mean, notice one constraint that we have on group word problems, right? And this is for chlorine immediately to see. The equivalence classes of a group word problems are always uniformly computably isomorphic with each other, right? So this actually means that the individual word problems, so the problems of deciding whether you are equivalent to some word U as U changes, right, through the group, have all the same complexity. And this is witnessed in some uniform way, right? So the complexity in a group word problem, it is heavily distributed, right? And this is not the case for semigroups, right? So for semigroups, just take the post-Markov construction. If you take, for instance, I mean, one word which is not encoding anything in the computation of a Turing machine you are encoding, you will have that the corresponding class is just a single, right? So in a semigroup, you may have that deciding equality to a given word is very much complicated. Deciding equality to another word is trivial, right? So we actually have that in order to appreciate these kind of computational aspects of word problems, Turing reducibility is not enough, right? So you really would like to move from Turing reducibility to a kind of measure of complexity that takes in account the fact that word problems are equivalent solutions. So you need a reducibility between equivalent solutions, right? You would like to regard as word problems not just as set of pairs, but in a bidimensional way. So, and this is exactly our idea, right? That it is to systematically revisit the complexity of word problems through the lens of the theory of equivalent solutions. Let me stress that the idea itself it should not be regarded as maybe particularly original by itself, right? What I would like to stress it is that I firmly believe that this is a very good moment to do so. Because the theory of equivalent solution, in particular the theory of C equivalent solution, expanded tremendously in the last 15 or 20 years, right? So now we know a lot about the theory of series. So it seems to be a really good moment to try to locate word problems in the theory of series, right? According to the most popular way of comparing series with respect to their complexity, which will be computable reducibility. So let me recall a few things about series. I will go quickly about that. This is something you all know, right? So if one would like to have a measure of complexity which is suitable for ranking equivalent solution, this is the most general notion you may have, right? So a reduction of some equivalent solution E defined on some space X to another equivalent solution F on Y is just some function which pushes down to an injective map on the quotient spaces, right? And in the literature, of course, here, I mean, nice say nothing, right? The point is that by the axiom of choice, you will always have a reduction from E to F, granting that the E classes are no more than the F classes. So things are more interesting if you put some definitional or algorithmic constraint on F, right? And in the literature, there are two main interpretations. So one is Borel reducibility, considering the Skititsa theory, where X and Y are polyspaces and F is Borel. The other one is computable reducibility, where you assume that X and Y are just the natural numbers and F is computable, right? So computable reducibility dates back to the work of Ershov in the theory of numberings, and it has been reconsidered many times through the decades, and especially for analyzing series, it has been a tremendous boost in the last maybe even more than 20 years, okay? So the most studied degree structure generated by computable reducibility is that of series. So the poset of C degrees of C equivalent solutions or positive equivalent solutions, okay? So why this is interesting? Well, series naturally appear in logic. So let me give you a few obvious examples. One, it is provable equivalence in any formal system. You may have some formal system you may like. What about Peano arithmetic, right? And then you have the equivalent solution which identify two numbers if and only if they are indices of formula that Peano arithmetic proved to be the same, right? Okay, according to some enumeration of the arithmetic formulas. Then you have all the possible restrictions of this equivalent solution only up to the sigma n sentences, right? What about isomorphism of finitely percentile groups, right? This is a series, right, through TZ transformations. And finally, word problems, right? If you are restricting the focus to recursively presented algebra, then the word problem will always be a seer, right? And so it already makes sense to ask which kind of seers admit an algebraic structure in this sense. Or if you prefer to wish to look at vice versa, for which algebraic structures, so given a certain familiar class of algebraic structure, which will be the class of seers that are realized as word problems for this class of structures up to computable reducibility. So a lot is known about this process, seers. I will tell you just very few examples, but I mean, it's way more than this, right? It's about the top poset. The top elements are the universal seers, and there is a lot of literature about that and studying the isomorphism type within the universal degree. There is an initial segment, right, of order type omega consisting of seers with finitely many equivalence classes, right? And after that, the situation explodes and turn out to be very much intricate. You have like less structure than you typically have with like ordinary set theoretical reducibility, or at least most of them, right? So it's neither an upper nor a lower lattice, similar to the 1 degrees, right? And it has continuum many automorphism, right? And finally, in fact, I mean, the first order theory is as complicated as possible, being computably isomorphic to first order arithmetic. So we know these things and many other, right? A basic observation which provide like a kind of a general partition of all seers in 3 main classes. It is given by a really basic observation. So the identity is not the least among the seers with infinitely many classes, right? So a way to see that, if you're familiar with discrete set theory a little bit, it is that there is no analog of silver dichotomy in this context, right? And to see that, it's sufficient to take a simple set, right, and consider the equivalent solution, which is given by collapsing all elements in the simple set in just 1 big class and leaving all the complemented singletons, right? So the identity will not be reducible to this ES, right? And this observation motivates this distinction, which goes back from a paper by Andrews and Sarby. You have on the one hand the light seers, these are above the identity, and are those for which there exists a computable transversal, so an infinite set which pick pairwise non-equivalent numbers. And on the other hand, you have the dark seers, right? These are the guys that are incomparable with the identity. Okay. So this would be kind of a picture to keep in mind, right? So let's try to connect these two things, and we will move from a question of Gauss-Gerdes, and then we will try to go much broadly to trying to understand more about the complexity of semigroups word problems. Okay, so we're going to use computable reducibility to classify word problems. This will be our measure of complexity, but sometimes we may be a little bit more demanding. So we may say that R and S are isomorphic if there exists a reduction from R to S which eats all S classes, right? Not avoiding any one of those. Now notice, this is kind of really easy to be seen. Notice that the existence of a reduction from R to S which hits all classes ensure that there exists also a backward reduction eating all R classes, right? And certainly, I mean, if 2 seers are isomorphic, they would fall in the same C degrees, obviously, but the converse does not hold, right? You actually have equivalent solutions which are bireducible, but they're not isomorphic. So, and this means that in this setting, you don't have the Cantor-Schroeder-Best-Time property, right? I will tell you more about this, right? And here, the term isomorphism, it really should be understood in some category theoretic sense. Okay, so it refers to the category of equivalent solution where morphism are mapping of equivalence classes induced by computable functions, and this has been vastly studied by Schuf. Okay, so there are a few facts about the complexity of word problems that you can phrase in the terminology of seers. So, for instance, it is a result even from the 70s that there is a finite represented group with a word problem which is a universal. Wow, I forgot, universal seer. Of course, okay. So notice that somehow this is strengthening the classic Novikov-Bohm result, right? So you're not only saying that you are able to encode the universal Turing machine or the Alting problem, if you wish, into like the word problem of finitely percented group, it really say that this finitely percented group is a universal zero, right? So the complexity is constructed in such a way in the equivalent solution that any other zero will be computably reducible to it. Okay. And recently there is this really wonderful result by Myasnikov and Olsin, in which they proved that there is a recursively percented group, and the same problem for finitely percented is still open and arguably almost impossible or really, really hard. So, but they were able to construct a recursively percented group with a word problem which is dark, right? So, which is a dark zero. So again, this would be an unsolvable, right, word problem, but in a sense, it would be so unsolvable that you are not able even to compute any infinite transversal in that, right? So you are not able to produce a computable list of words in the generators of the group, so that would be pairwise non-equivalent. Okay. So let me say that a series is serialized by recursively percented algebra if you have well, just if the word problem and the seer turn out to have the same degree, right? So up to computable reducibility. Then you may say that a class of algebra is C-complete if you actually have that you are able to realize all series, right? So any series is serialized, again, up to this measure of complexity, not just mere coincidence, but up to computable reducibility by a certain member of C. So as I mentioned before, groups are not C-complete. Remember this constraint that you have it. The equivalence classes in a group are always uniformly computably isomorphic, and this is not the case for instance, the seer, this seer, right, in which you have only one class being undecidable and the other one being singletons, right? What about other natural classes of algebras? Okay. So Engel asks if any seer is equivalent up to computable reducibility, not just mere coincidence, to the word problem of some finitely percented semigroup. Or in other words, are finitely percented semigroups C-complete? Okay. So this is, well, at least at first, right? I will spend a few words about that. At least at first, this seems to be an interesting question. So first of all, I mean, if true, it would tell you that the theory of seers is nothing more than just the theory of word problems for finitely percented semigroups, right? So providing a full algebraic interpretation for the theory of seers. On the other hand, it would extend this really beautiful paper by Shepperson that goes back to the 60s, in which Shepperson was able to show that for any uniform sequence of C sets, you actually can construct a finitely percented semigroup in which you encode each of these sets into given equivalence classes, but with some residuals, right? You don't have full control of the whole equivalence solution, right? So this would be a way of like extending this to the whole equivalent solution, right? But in fact, I mean, well, this is not true, right? There are seers that cannot be serialized by any finitely percented semigroup, right? So in fact, no class of even finitely generated semigroups can realize the seers, right? Now, this can be proven by a priority argument. This is what we did with Valentino and Andrea in a paper of 2020. But in fact, recently, we realized with the help of an anonymous referee for our new paper that building on work of Kasimov and Kusainov, one can actually find a natural property of seers which forbids realizability by finitely generated algebras. And how to do that? Well, say that a seer E is hyperdark if all its transversal are hyperimmune. Now here I have a definition of hyperimmunity, but of course you don't need it, right? So hyperdark seers exist, right? You just take again a set being hypersimple and then the unidimensional equivalent solution generated by this, right? So hyperdark equivalent solution form a subclass of the dark seers, right? And back in the 80s, Kasimov and Kusainov proved that if A is hyperdark, then every finitely generated subalgebra of A is finite. Okay, so the idea behind is pretty much straightforward, but I will probably skip it because of time, right? So, but then this would mean generalizing from seers to C degrees and essentially proving that hyperdarkness is a degree invariant property, you immediately have that hyperdarkness is kind of a combinatorial property that prevents realizability by any finitely generated algebra. Okay, so from that, looking at, right, and basically having this negative solution to Gauss-Gerdes problem, the next step would be trying to ask whether it is possible to improve our knowledge of the complexity of semigroup word problems through the lenses of series, right? And here it is the place I would like to emphasize a lot that now it's a good moment to study this connection between word problems and series because our knowledge of series expanded so much, right? Let me try to give you evidence about that. So use this piece of notation. Say that SFP, SFG, SRP, these are respectively the C degrees realized by word problems of finitely presented semigroups, finitely generated semigroups, and recursively presented semigroups, right? One would like to understand how this class of degrees would compare with each other, right? So first of all, it's really easy to observe that SRP, so the degrees that are realized by recursively presented semigroups, just coincide with all series, right? And in fact, every series is even isomorphic to the word problem of a recursively presented semigroup. Next, on the other hand, well, we have this, right? SFG must be a proper subclass of SRP, and this is witnessed by any hyperdark degree, right? In fact, I mean, this set difference contain both initial segment of series, just because hyperdark is an initial segment of series, right? And also series with finite equivalence classes, in which all classes finite, right? Okay, so you can obtain hyperdarkness also with this additional constraint, right? And also interestingly, I mean, after obtaining this result, you may suspect that maybe the class of degrees that are realized by finitely generated semigroup is not too large, right? But in fact, this would be like a wrong suspect. It's large in several reasonable ways. In particular, it embeds this poset, right? Okay. So, and again, I mean, this result by itself, it would seem that it requires a lot of coding, right, to obtain this result. But again, it relies to the kind of knowledge of series that now we have, right, and we didn't have when the study of word problems launched and was very much pursued, right? So this item relies on the fact that for any single series R, right, we have a way of encoding R into the word problem of a semigroup, which is finitely generated, with just a countable collection of residuals that would be the join identity. Okay, and then it is known, right, that you can build you can embed as an initial segment of series, right, this poset in all series having the property that R would be of the same degree of R join ID, right? So light series, but in fact a special subclass of light series, this having this property of being able to extract the identity from R. Okay. So, and what about this question, right? We still don't know this one, right? And this, to our knowledge, right? I mean, the literature is rich. Specifically, let me stress, and of course you all know that very well, more than I do, right? I mean, the literature on word problem has been greatly developed in all both Soviet times and most generally Russian mathematics. So whatever I'm saying, it is just up to our knowledge, right? I would be happy to know if there are some things that we don't know and we are missing, but we just don't know that at the moment, right? So whether up to computable reducibility, it's possible to build a seer, right, which is realized by finitely generated semigroup, but not in a finitely presented way. And again, the difficulty seems to be up to computable reducibility. If you just ask for mere coincidence, this is the case, it's non-empty, right? And it's not difficult to prove. Okay, let me. Do you have? Do I have 5 minutes more or? Yes. Okay. Thanks a lot. Let me conclude like with this brief relation between algebra and arithmetic, and again, I will tell you just a few results leading to what I find a very fascinating question, right? So I have already introduced this probability with Ampeano arithmetic and its restriction to the sigma n formulas, right? Now, first of all, I mean, it has been known since the work of Bernardi and Sorby in the 70s that all these spheres are universal, right? But they are not isomorphic, right? According to our definition of isomorphism of spheres that I gave it before, right? So, and in particular, you have that there exists a diagonal function for probability in PA, but there can be no diagonal function for any of its restriction to the sigma n formulas, right? Okay. So, and basically, this gives you exactly the kind of failure of Cantor-Schroeder-Bernstein property that I said before. So you have spheres that are computably very reducible, and of course they will because they're both universal, and yet they are not isomorphic, right? So this started a long-standing research program that tried to classify universal spheres according to their isomorphism types. And here's a fascinating problem. So how much algebra extraction is needed in order to encode arithmetic probability, so PA, right, that equivalence relation, up to isomorphism into the word problem? Okay. So for instance, it is kind of straightforward and classic, this result by Purell and Kripke. There is a Boolean algebra with word problem isomorphic to that of PA, right, with arithmetic probability. How more you can go? Well, there are some results. Let me mention a fairly recent one. We were able to prove that there is a non-Boolean ring with word problem isomorphic to PA, right? Okay. But here's the main question, right? And the one that I find fascinating. So can PA be isomorphic to the word problem of a finitely represented group, right? Can it be the case that there is, we certainly know already, right? I mentioned this result before, that there is a finitely represented group whose word problem is a universal sphere, right? It turned out that this universal sphere, it is not of the same isomorphism type of that of arithmetic probability of PA, right? Can you actually make these two things together, right? Can you actually encode all the information of arithmetic probability through the word problem of a finitely represented group, right? So the main difficulty to attack this problem is that in all known examples of algebras that are able to emulate arithmetic, you require two different operations to emulate Boolean connectives, right? And in this case, you don't have it, right? So all of these proofs relies on some, some sufficiently powerful application of the recursion theorem. So essentially, the recursion theorem, as you know, it's just the protagonist of all this theory, right? I mean, most proofs just rely on like several, in fact, infinite applications of the recursion theorem. And to emulate arithmetic, in all known examples, people really use the fact that you have like at least two different operations in the algebra that would tell that you would be able to emulate on the one side the multiplication, on the other one side addition, right? So the question is whether you're able to do that in the group case, in which of course you only have one operation. Okay. So a positive solution would give you some connection, a nice one between proof theory and group theory, and a negative one would just exclude arithmetic probability from the things you can simulate via groups. Okay. There are many research directions that are still to be explored. I mean, in this talk, now you notice that, right? I try to emphasize more on questions and overview. I also try to give you a couple of like nice results, but really stressing that I believe that now it's a really good moment to try to connect the theory of word problems, right, on which we have a lot of literature, but almost entirely about classic set theoretical reducibility with the theory of spheres, right? And this is in fact the main focus of my just newly started FWF project, which will be about exactly this, right? So just to give a couple of concluding directions, one it is, what about other algebraic varieties, right? You can do the same moving from semigroups to whatever you wish, right? Rings, lattices, you choose it, right? And of course, I mean, really intriguing and perhaps very much challenging, it seems the case of groups, right? Okay. And what about, and this, at least to my knowledge, is almost entirely new, right? So it turned out that a lot of word problems are solvable, right? I mean, we are computability theorists. We would like to emphasize a lot the unsolvable cases, but in many cases, you have solvability, right? So, for instance, I mean, it's an old proof by Magnus that groups with just one relator, these are solvable, right? And for some other classes of groups, I mean, very much studied, and algebras, you have solvability. So it would be nice to pursue this kind of similar study. Of course, if you would like to rank the complexity of solvable word problems, then computable reducibility would be too coarse, and you have to move to something finer. And what about using feasible reducibilities? Primitive recursive reducibility, polynomial time reducibility, and stuff like that, okay? And finally, word problems are just prominent, if you wish, but just one example of the kind of decision problems that are natural in combinatorial algebra, other being isomorphism problem, conjugacy problem, divisibility problems. All of them induce the equivalent solution or at least pre-orders in the case of the divisibility problem. So it would be still possible to analyze that with respect to poset of C degrees. Okay, and this is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's thank the speaker. I think we have no time for questions, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Luca, for a nice talk. Okay, our next speaker is Frank Stephan from National University of Singapore. The talks about on trees without hyperimmune branches. So, Frank?
Yes. I have to click share. Okay. Yes, so this is joint work with Keng-Meng Ng, Yang Yue, and Yu Liang. And the talk was presented on the CIE 2022 in Swansea remotely, because when we wanted to travel there, my wife got COVID. And now World Logic Day in Astana also remotely. So there is a overview theorem. There is a co-RE3S without dead ends, such that it has 2 to Aleph 0 many infinite branches A, where all non-recursive A are hyperimmune free, generalized below 1, Schnorr trivial of minimal Turing degree, and Jump traceable. And I will explain all these things. ORE3 means downward closure of subset of binary strings, such that the set of strings outside is recursively enumerable. Branches are finite or infinite strings, and such that all finite prefixes of them are in the tree. If you have a recursive tree, you cannot remove the finite branches which are dead ends. But for co-RE3, you can also enumerate them into the complement when you see that this happens. And so you can say whatever is on the tree has an extension on the tree. Hyperimmune free, the easiest definition is every A recursive function is measurized by a recursive function. That means it is below a recursive function. Schnorr trivial, this is a funny, it has a funny definition which I give is an equivalent one. So for every function f true stable reducible to A, there is a recursive function g such that for all n there is an m less equal n, and f of n is g of n comma m. So the G gives possible values and one of them applies, and you can bound it uniformly for independent of what F is. A is jump traceable, so there are recursive function F and G, such that for all E, the value phi A E of E, so that means the value of the diagonal function is in W F of E. And furthermore, if you would enumerate everything into W F of E, it would be cheating. So you say the size of WF of E is bounded by G of E. So, generalized law, the jump of A is Turing reducible, sorry, the T is missing, to A joint K, where K is the halting problem. This is a consequence of being jump traceable. So one considers a partial function phi A S of E of x, which outputs for all x the time until phi A E of E converges. And then one determines, using the halting problem, the largest value T in W F of S of E. Since the size is bounded, this exists unless the set is empty. And now one can simulate the inversion of E into A prime for up to T steps and then decide the jump. So also with the halting problem. Therefore, the jump of A is Turing reducible to A joint K. Set of infinite branches is uncountable. This is shown by showing that the double jump of these infinite branches coincides with the upper cone above K prime. So we will just code up accordingly. Every node of the tree is on an isolated infinite branch. If this would not be true, one could go from a node sigma 0 onwards by finding, using the halting problem, node sigma 1, sigma 2, and so on, so that sigma k plus 1 is not a prefix of phi k, and sigma k is below sigma k plus 1. So these nodes then define a k-recursive but not recursive infinite branch, which is not hyperimmune free. So these are the basic ideas and notions of this proof. Now I will go a bit more into detail. So first, there is a proposition on trees. I formulated for the halting jump of the halting problem, but you can do it with every B jump and of BRE. So if T is a K prime recursive tree, then T is contained in a KRE tree, so recursive numeral relative, the halting problem, T hat, such that the infinite branches of T hat and T coincide. So this is a folklore result which holds relative to any oracle, but it's needed here relative to K. By the limit lemma, there is a K-recursive approximation Ts such that for all mu in T, Ts of mu is T of mu for almost all S. Now one enumerates the mode nu into T hat if there's a stage S greater the length of mu, such that all prefixes nu of mu are in Ts. If you don't find it, you don't put it in. And if A is an infinite branch of T, then clearly all prefixes of A are enumerated into T hat. Else, there is a prefix mu of A which is not in T, and then there is a stage T such that Ts of mu is 0 for all S greater equal T, and then no prefix of A longer than the length of mu plus this T will be enumerated into T hat. Yeah, so this is useful. Most people know it, but I gave it here as a tool. So, based on Friedberg jump inversion theorem, there is a perfect K prime recursive tree T, such that every infinite branch of it is too generic. Too generic just means one generic relative to halting problem. So given a set B subset the natural numbers and oracle K prime, one starts with the root sigma 0 and then puts it into the tree. Then one checks whether there is an extension sigma n B of n such in WKE And if so, one left sigma n plus 1 to be the first extension found by search relative to k. Else sigma n plus 1 is just sigma nb of n. So if one knows that the extension exists, one can find that with search. But if it doesn't exist, you have no way to know. So therefore, it might be difficult to find, but one can do it. And this case distinction is clearly K prime recursive. And so the resulting tree T is a union of the construction for all oracles B. So you can do it uniformly and then always assume, okay, this goes for B0 and this goes for B of n equal 0 and this for B of n equal 1. And so you can make a K prime recursive tree inductively. And this encode infinite branch for B. So, and these infinite branches are then indeed by the techniques in the Friedberg jump inversion theorem to generic. So then in the construction which comes later, we have some assumption phi AE is true stable reduction. Then it assumes that there's a recursive function G. So phi AE of X needs independently of the choice of A exactly G of X stat and queries G of only below G of X and outputs a value which is below G of X. Similarly, if phi E is a Turing reduction and phi AE needs S steps to converge, then all places queried are below S and phi AE of X is below S. So Schnorr trivial, A is Schnorr trivial, what they had already before. If for all functions true stable reducible to A, there's recursive function G, which bounds it, and for all X, it's a Y we had before less equal 2 to the X, f of X is G of Y. I had several definitions which are equivalent. I had before given a slightly different one. Schnorr trivial plus hyperimmune free implies recursively traceable. However, the property Schnorr trivial is easier to achieve in the construction. And so in co-RE trees, as I said, you can prune off all the finite branches and of an existing recursive tree. And then you have a co-RE tree and where each node has either one or two successors, but which does not have a dead end. And the infinite branches of both are the same. So now we come to the main result, what I had announced before. There is a co-RE tree S with uncountably many infinite branches, such that every non-recursive infinite branch has all these properties: hyperimmune free Turing degree, minimal Turing degree, generalized low one, jump traceable, and Schnorr trivial. And furthermore, one will even have that if one removes isolated branches, one will get a perfect tree. The tree S is constructed using a KRE guidance tree, T hat, having only two generic infinite branches, and every infinite branch A of S is either isolated or recursive, or satisfies that there's a B, so that and recursive, or satisfies that there is a B with A join K to be Turing equivalently to T of B join K. So in T, the branch encoded from T with in the tree, original tree T, from which we have taken T hat. and thus A is not Turing reducible to K, and A join K prime is the same as B join K prime. Furthermore, every infinite branch of A satisfies that A jump is A Turing equivalent to A join K, and A double jump is Turing equivalent to A join K prime. And note that T of P is a two generic infinite branch of hat T as well. So now I will give the construction. I will, this verification I cannot give in full. So I will give the construction and hope you can somehow follow it. They had originally in mind a much more full approximation technique, and it never got written up. And only by making this new proof, we get the proof small enough so that we could get reviewed by the CIE. So the construction works with marker Cn, which are initialized with Cn0 to be n, and move at stages t from Cnt to Cnt plus 1. In parallel to the movement of the markers, a co-array tree will be constructed, which had branching nodes only at levels where a marker sits. The tree is called S, and S0, the starting tree, is just all binary words. Recall that a finite tree up to a level can be described by the leaf nodes at that level. Furthermore, one can, for each leaf, describe the string of branching bits, how you reach this leaf. And these are those bits in which the path to the leaf where one has to make a choice between two possibilities in order to select the leaf to which you want to go. Those where the only one choice, those where there's only one choice is omitted from the string. So only if there's a choice, you put the bit in. At stage T, one first considers for each n with Cnt less equal T plus 1, the finite tree Ln, sorry for the triple E, which contains all words sigma in St, with dom sigma to be from 0, 1 up to Cnt minus 1. And now the extension of Hn, or Hn of Ln, so sorry, there is, one considers an extension Hn of Ln, so Ln is the lower tree, Hn the new one, and calls it admissible if it satisfies the following conditions. The leaves of Hn have the domain up to T plus 1. For each leaf sigma in Ln, there's exactly one node tau in Hn, which extends sigma and has domain 0, 1 to T. Furthermore, there are either 1 or 2 A in 0, 1 with tau A in Hn. Hn is a subset of St, so what is not yet removed from the co-enumerated tree. Let mu be the selection of branching bits of sigma for Ln, and tau as sigma as in item 2. Tau extends for, so now mu is enumerated into, if mu is enumerated into S using the oracle KT instead of the oracle K within n steps, then tau 0, tau 1 are both in Hn. Else only tau 0 is in Hn. And so whenever, so and next steps 5. Furthermore, there is progress from Ln to Hn. We always want to have progress in the way that for a certain enumeration, definability or splitting goals are obtained. More precisely, there are sigma, sigma prime in Ln with the corresponding extensions tau and tau prime in Hn, such as the following are satisfied. Some element x less equal n became enumerated into k between time Cnt and t plus 1. Second, there is E less equal n, such which the function phi sigma E is not defined on all of 0 to ny within Cnt plus steps, but phi tau E is defined on all these inputs. So this is to track whether the phi E's are total. There is a E less equal n, so that phi E of EE is not defined, so a single value from the diagonal, while phi tau EE is defined within t plus 1 steps. For some E less equal n, there is an x such that phi sigma E and phi sigma E prime are consistent at time C and t, while at time t plus 1 with tau as oracle instead of sigma and tau prime instead of sigma, they are defined and different for some x less than t plus 1 within t plus 1 steps. This is important for making minimal degrees. And the last possible progress is just to make sure that something is selected. So that means the length of sigma and tau is the same, and C and T is t plus 1. So that means one only deals with the largest possible candidate in the case that the smaller candidates don't apply. And for the least n, where one can find LNHN, do. First, for all m less than n, CMT plus 1 is CMT, so they don't change. Then CNT plus 1 is t plus 1. And for n greater m, CMT plus 1 is CNT plus 1 plus n minus m. Let me see, perhaps it should be m minus n, not n minus m. Sorry. Furthermore, one let ST plus 1 consist of all the nodes which are comparable to one of the leaves of Hn. That is, one prunes off the tree all the nodes which are extending some leaf in sigma Ln, but incomparable to all leaves in Hn. Yeah. Note that such an n is always found, as the n with Cn to be t plus 1 can be selected when no smaller n qualifies. So that means this algorithm doesn't get stuck. So the algorithm is, let's go again. This was preliminaries, to let these markers run larger and larger, and the markers define the levels of the tree. And furthermore, there is a question, when do you want 2 or 1 branch or not branch? And this is mainly dictated by whether some enumeration is done into whether for using Oracle KT instead of Oracle K, the mu from the guidance tree is enumerated into KT within n steps, then you put only 1, else you branch and put 2. Yeah. And these were the progress measures towards your goals. And whenever for an n, an additional goal is satisfied, this applies and the tree is thinned out by extending the Ln to Hn and to cut off the incomparable things to the leaves of Hn. Yeah. And the smaller the n is, which makes progress, the more is cut off. And smaller n have higher priority than larger n, so it is similar to finite injury priority methods. Okay. Now, in the following, the value of ln and hn refer to the trees with the leaves at level CNT minus 1 and CNT respectively, where t is so large that CNT does not change at t or later. So it's the last change. So for jump traceability, all the values of phi, a, and n for infill branches A of the tree are of the form phi sigma nn for some leaf sigma of ln. Requirements at level n act as most a to the n plus 2 times. You can go and count, so that together with the actions of the requirement below, they are at most a to the 8 to the n plus 1 times n plus 2 actions. Overall, the bound is then 8 to this number, n plus 1 times n plus 1 times 2 to the n, and this is 2 to the 3n square plus 10n plus 6. Yeah. And jump traceability, which here you see so many candidates you enumerate for what phi a n of n could be, and that's it. So this is a recursive bound. The enumeration process comes out of the construction. You go over all possible leaves, so one of them will be a prefix of a, unless a is cut off from the tree. And so the infill branches of the tree have all this jump traceability property. And then an infinite branch A of S is isolated if and only if there is an n such that the leaf of A restricted to the final version of Ln has selecting width mu with mu not in head T. So that means these selecting bits are not in the KRE tree. So once they won't be enumerated in a stable way. If they are enumerated in an unstable way by a wrong copy of KT, for K to the time T, then this copy will change later, and then the branching will be undone. Yeah, and therefore this property of the tree is maintained. Jump traceability. Yes, I have it here for whatever reason a second time. I had some overview slide and not seen that I had it twice. So verification, one sees by induction that, okay, this is all what I explained to you before. So let's skip it. So the tree property, the reason is that if mu is not on T hat, then for all m greater equal n, when the T where CMT sits on its final position, and that is at most T, the corresponding KT will coincide with K on all places queried for the first m steps of the enumeration of T tilde, and therefore mu will not be enumerated, and there will be no branching at the leaf of A at the level CMT, and preliminary branching of this marker will be cut off at this stage. If, however, for every n, the final Ln, which is the last Hn without the upmost level, satisfies that mu is in T tilde, then there will be an m greater equal n where mu will actually be enumerated into T tilde and within M steps, and therefore at that level there will be branching node of S for the final tree Hn, and thus in S. So A will not be isolated. This is the main way this is maintained. So, verification of hyperimmune freeness, which was, of course, the main property of this construction. And this was already in preliminary constructions, but not in combination with the other properties. Let A be an infinite branch of S, which is not isolated and which therefore might be non-recursive. Note that all isolated infinite branches are recursive. Now A is of the form S of B for the two generic B. So for given Turing reduction phi E, consider the following set. WK is a set of all mu, there is an n equal E. The final Ln has a leaf sigma with branching bits mu, and phi sigma E of x undefined for some x less than n. This set is KRE and notes that when phi AE of x would be defined for some infinite branch A of S extending sigma, then the progress would be possible and the Ln would not be the final one. Yeah? And so we go on. So if an A equal S satisfies that the above sigma, some infinite branch of S also extending sigma such that phi A tilde E of x is not total, then there is an x with phi A tilde of x E of x being undefined for or any n greater equal x that will satisfy that some prefix sigma tilde of A tilde is in Ln as a leaf, and phi E of sigma is not defined on all from 0 to n. And therefore, the string nu will be in the branch of the branching width is in WK. Thus, B has above every node some extension in WK, and so B has a prefix itself which is in WK. And this implies that phi AE is not total by the definition of WK. Yeah. So one sees that there is a sigma prefix A, such that for all infinite branches A tilde of sig S which extends sigma, it holds that phi A tilde E is total. Thus one can, for every x, simulate the co-enumeration of S and the pruning of the tree until a stage is found and a level L, so that for all tau in 0, 1 to the L, which extend sigma and which are still in S, it holds that phi tau E of x coincides within L steps. And then the maximum of these values converges within L steps, sorry. And then the maximum of these values is an upper bound for phi AE of x. And as this upper bound is computed by a recursive function, phi AE has a recursive upper bound. Thus, for each E, either phi AE is partial, as indicated on preceding slides, or phi AE has a recursive upper bound, and therefore all non-isolated infinite branches S of a hyperimmune-free are of hyperimmune-free Turing degree. The isolated infinite branches are recursive and therefore also of hyperimmune-free Turing degree as well. So, and this is the three statement of the theorem. There's a coarry tree as without finite branches, having 2 to Aleph 0 many infinite branches, such that all non-recursive infinite branches are hyperimmune free, generalized low, Schnorr trivial, of minimal Turing degree. I didn't outline how to prove this, and jump traceable. There's furthermore, if you would cut off the isolated branches, you would get a perfect tree. This I didn't indicate here how it is proven, but for some of my co-authors, this was also important. So, and then open questions. A, are there uncountably many hyperimmune-free sets which are hyperimmune free relative to every low recursively enumerable set? We had claimed in an older conference version, which we had 10 years before, that this would be the case, but actually the proof which we had in mind was too complicated and replaced by this one. And this current proof does not give it. So therefore we leave A as an open question. B, is every jump of a non-recursive hyperimmune-free set also the jump of a 2 generic set? The converse is known to be true. C, is a jump of every hyperimmune-free set also the jump of a hyperimmune-free Schnorr trivial set? This we also don't know. And the article, you find it on Julian's homepage or in the CIE proceedings. And if I didn't put it so far on the homepage, I have to do it myself as well. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Frank, for a nice talk. Thank you for the speakers. Any question? Comment?
Yeah, so this is now proof of one result. So I couldn't give overview and could only give a proof sketch in the talk. But the special thing was we had announced this 10 years ago, more than 10 years, at a logic program, Asian Logic Conference. And we were indebted to the community to produce a proof. And the original approach had the full approximation technique. And the proof was projected to be 100 or whatever pages. And so nobody had the desire to write it up completely. And it didn't get written. And then at the end, we decided to discard this proof and try something else. And this was the one here with the guidance tree.
That's good. Okay. Any question from audience? Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like
Okay.
yeah, no questions. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
If you present a complicated proof, you have to expect this.
Yes.
So this didn't surprise me. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for the nice talk. Yeah. Okay. For the next talk, we have a 7 or 6 minutes, but shall we start? Continue? If
With me, it's fine.
yeah. Okay. So, Professor Beibut, are you here?
I am here.
Okay.
Good evening to everybody. Now,
Let's start. Okay, so our next speakers, Professor Beibut Kulpeshev from Kazakh British Technical Universities. It talks about some results on variants of o-minimalities. So please.
Thank you. So our talk concerns some results on variance of o-minimality. Let's start. So part one, this is concerns the notion almost omega categoricity in weakly or minimal series. So here we have some definition. A subset A of a linearly ordered structure M is said to be convex if for any AB from A and C from M, whenever C between A and B, we have C belongs A. A weakly or minimal structure is a linearly ordered structure M such that any definable subset is a union of finitely many convex sets. So, for example, this real closed fields with a proper convex valuation ring provide an important example of weakly or minimal, not or minimal structures. This definition of almost omega categoricity, let T be a complete series and P1, Pn, this is one type of empty set, a type Q x1 of xn, this is n type over empty set, is said to be P1, Pn type if Q of x1, xn includes a union of Pi, xi, where I change from 1 up to n. The set of all P1, Pn types of the series T is denoted by C P1, Pn of T. A countable series T is said to be almost omega categorical if for any one types P1, Pn over empty set, there are only finitely many types Q, x1, xn from this S P1, Pn of this. So there are only finitely many extension of these types. Observe that almost omega categorical weakly or minimal series are not small in general. As an example of such series, we can consider the structure M. This is the set of rational numbers, linear order, and Q for any element of the set of rational numbers. Then the series of M has continuum one types over empty set, though it's not small. But we have the following proposition: an almost omega categorical series T is small if and only if the set of one types of the series T is less than or equals omega. Next, this is a definition of weak orthogonality of one types. Let T be a weakly or minimal series, M is the model of T, A subset of M, P, Q, this is one types over A, non-algebraic one types. We say that P is not weakly orthogonal to Q if there exists an LA formula, HXY, alpha from P of M and beta 1, beta 2 from Q of M, such that beta 1 belongs HM alpha and beta 2 does not belong HM alpha. In other words, P is weakly orthogonal to Q if P of X union Q of Y has a unique extension to a complete two type over A. This is classical definition from Scheller. So next definition, this is quite o-minimality. So we say that P is not quite orthogonal to Q if there is an A definable bijection F P of M to Q of M. We say that a weakly or minimal series is quite or minimal if the relations of weak and quite orthogonality coincides for one types or arbitrary sets of models of the given series. So this is a notion of quite orthogonal. This is is similar as for o-minimal case. If P is not weakly orthogonal to Q in the o-minimal case, then there is a definable bijection, but there is a strictly monotonic. But in general, here for weakly this bijection is not in general strictly monotonic. This is locally monotonic. So we have the following proposition. Let T be an almost omega categorical quite o-minimal series, then in any model of T, exchange principle for algebraic closure holds. And also we have the following theorem: any Ehrenfeld binary quite o-minimal series is almost omega categorical. Next, this is definition disjunct union of structures by Woodrow. So the disjunct union Mn of pairwise disjoint structure Mn with pairwise disjoint predicate signature sigma n is said to be a structure of the signature union sigma n and union unary predicates Pn for n belongs omega with the inverse union Mn, where unary predicates distinguish the structure Mn, and interpretations of predicate symbols from sigma n coinciding with the interpretation in structures Mn. So we consider the disjunct union of countably many copies of the Ehrenfeld example with three countable models ordered by the type omega. This theory has countably many non-isolated one-types over empty set, and therefore it has maximal number of countable models. But observe that this theory is almost omega categorical and weakly minimal. Next. So this definition of convexity rank of a set. We consider an arbitrary complete theory T, where M is sufficiently saturated model of T. Below, we extend the definition of convexity rank of a formula with one free variable on arbitrary sets, not necessarily defined. So let T be a weakly or minimal theory, M be a sufficiently saturated model of T, A subset of M. So the convexity rank of the set A is defined as follows. So equals -1 if A is empty, equals 0 if A is finite and non-empty, and is greater than or equals A, this rank, if A is infinite. Next, for convexity rank of A is greater than or equals alpha plus 1 if there exists a parametrically definable equivalence relation E such that there are Bi from A that satisfies the following. For any ij whenever I is not equal to j, we have negation E, Bi, Bj. And for every I from omega, rank of the set E of MBI greater than or equals alpha, and this set is a convex subset of A. And P, this is for limit ordinal delta. So convexity rank of A greater than or equals delta if convexity rank of A greater than or equals alpha for all alpha less than delta. If convexity rank of A equals alpha for some alpha, then we say that this rank is defined. Otherwise, if the convexity rank of A greater than or equals alpha for all alpha, we put the convexity rank equals infinity. So the convexity rank of a formula phi xa is defined as the convexity rank of the set phi MA. Okay. And here we also introduce the definition of P preserving convex to right-left formula. So let T be weakly or minimal theory. P, this is non-algebraic one type. So first, N, A definable, LA formula, not A definable, LA, the formula with constant from A. And LA formula fxy is said to be P preserving if they exist alpha, gamma 1, gamma 2 from PM such that Fm alpha without A intersection P of M is not empty set, and Fm alpha intersection P of M lies between gamma 1 and gamma 2. So this second, P preserving formula fxy is said to be convex to right left if they exist alpha from P of M such that Fm alpha intersection P of M is convex. Alpha is the left or right endpoint of the set, and alpha belongs to the set. So also definition, let fxy be a P preserving convex to right left formula. We say this formula is equivalent generating if for any alpha beta from P of M such that F beta alpha the following holds. So this formula from definition, it's clear this is the formula generate equivalence relation. So what? Let's consider example. Let M, this is the set of rational numbers, linear order, and binary predicate A. B, this is the structure linearly ordered. And for any A, B from M, we have A of BA, if and only if B between A less than or equals B less than or equals A plus square root of 2. So let P of X, this is X equals X, this is model is one transitive, so this is P of M equals M. We can establish that, so P of X determines a complete type over, and Rxy is a non-equivalent generating P preserving convex to right formula. So we have the following properties of P preserving convex to right formula. So lemma 1, let T be weakly or minimal theory, P be non-algebraic over A, fxy be a P preserving convex to right formula. Suppose that fxy is not equivalent generating, then there exists alpha beta from P of M such that M holds F beta alpha, and there is X negation Fx alpha and Fx beta. And lemma 2, let T be weakly or minimum zero. If fxy be a preserving convex to right formula, then the formula f prime xy, there is z, fzy, and fxz is also a preserving convex to right and left, or left. So let's consider the following theorem. here we have some proof of this theorem. It's not difficult. So let T be an almost omega categorical weakly minimal theory. P, this is non-algebraic type over empty set. Then, in this case, we have any P preserving convex to right formula is equivalent generating. So, proof of theorem 1. Assume the contrary. There is a P preserving convex to right formula that is not equivalence generating. Then by lemma 1, there exists a model and alpha beta from PM such that we have this situation. So consider the following formula F1. Then by lemma 2, this F1 xy is also preserving convex to right. So consider the following formulas Fn xy. For any n greater than or equals 2, we can see that we have for any alpha from PM, phi n m alpha is contained, properly contained in F2 m alpha and etc. Fn m alpha. So we have infinite chain of these formulas, infinite increasing chain of this formula. And so consider for every natural n the following set of formulas. So Pn xy, P of x union P of y, and Fn xy and negation Fn minus 1 xy. It's this set, it's locally consistent. Then we obtain that the number of P1, P2 types is infinite, where Pi xy, this is P of xy. So the last contradicts the almost omega categoricity of T. This finish our proof. So this theorem, we have the any P preserving convex to right formula is equivalent generating. Next, and so behavior of equivalence relation. And we have the following corollary. Let T be an almost omega categorical weakly minimal theory. P, this is non-algebraic type. E, xy be an empty definable equivalence relation, partitioning PM into convex classes. And there are at least 2 such classes. Then E partitions PM into infinitely many such classes, so that the induced ordering on classes is dense ordering without endpoints. Next, and we have the following theorem. Any almost omega categorical quite or minimal theory is binary. And also we have the following theorem. Any weakly or minimal theory of finite convexity rank having less than continuum pairwise non-isomorphic countable models is also almost omega categorical. This definition, the convexity rank of a formula phi of x is said to be binary. And we know, and we denote it by RC being of phi of x. If in definition of convexity rank, we replace parametrically definable equivalence relation by empty definable. It is binary equivalence relation. So this is a definition need for later. Here we have nothing. Let P1, P2, PS, this is non-algebraic one types over empty set. We said that this family of one types is weakly orthogonal over empty set if every S tuple A1 and S from P1 of M times etc. times PS of M satisfies the same type over empty set. And we say this family of one types is orthogonal over empty set if for every sequence N1, etc. and S from omega in power S, and any increasing tuples A1 prime from P1 of M, etc. AS prime from PS of M, such that types A1 and A1 prime coincide over empty set, etc. types AS and AS prime coincide over empty sets, we have that type A1, AS over empty set coincide with type A1 prime, etc. AS prime over empty set. We have here example where weak orthogonality of a family of types fails. So let's consider example. Let M, this is a linearly ordered structure. We have here 3 unary predicates. M is a disjoint union of interpretations of unary predicates P1, P2, and P3. And we have P1 of M less than P2 of M less than P3 of M. We identify every interpretation Pi with the set of rational numbers. The symbol F is interpreted by a partial binary function with domain F. This is P1 of M times P2 of M, and range of M of F equals P3 of M. And it's defined by the identity F of AB equals A plus B for all AB from Q times Q. So it can be proved that this theory of the structure is weakly or minimal. Obviously, Pi of X, this is unary predicates Pi of X, determine complete one types over empty set. And these types are pairwise weakly orthogonal, but this family P1, P2, P3 is not weakly orthogonal over empty set. And also, and we have the following theorem of orthogonality. So first, this is proposition 1. If T be on be an almost omega categorical weakly or minimal theory, P1, P2, Pm non-algebraic pairwise weakly orthogonal one types. Suppose that every non-algebraic one type over empty set has finite convexity rank, then this family P1, P2, Pm is weakly orthogonal over empty set. And theorem 2, let T be an almost omega categorical weakly or minimal theory, and all this the same situation, P1, P2, PS, non-algebraic pairwise weakly orthogonal one types, and suppose that every non-algebraic one type over empty set has finite convexity rank, that this family is orthogonal over empty set. So for almost omega categorical weakly or minimal theory, this theorem holds. Recall that a complete theory T is said to be binary if any formula of the theory T is equivalent in T to a Boolean combination of formulas with at most 2 free variables. Pillai and Steinhorn have completely characterized all omega categorical o-minimal series. Their characterization implies binarity of this series. So theorem 3, let T be an omega categorical weakly or minimal series, then T is binary if and only if T has finite convexity rank. And now we have theorem 4, let T be an almost omega categorical weakly or minimal series, then T is binary if and only if every non-algebraic one type has finite convexity rank. Okay. Also, we have P star combinations. Let Mi, this is a linearly ordered structure of this relay signature sigma I. we denote by M prime is a linearly ordered disjoint P combination of the structures Mi in the language, this linear order, sigma and Pi for any I from omega. So we have countably many unary predicates, new predicates. So here sigma, this is a union of sigma I, and the universe of the combinations is the union of Mi. Pi of M prime, this is equals Mi for each. So the unary predicates distinguish the structure Mi. So we have either Pk of M prime less than Pm of prime, or Pm of M prime less than Pk of M prime for any k M, with k is not equal M. Here we will differ P combinations where for some I is not equal J, we have sigma I intersection sigma J is not equals empty. And P star combinations where for any I is not equal J, we have this signature don't intersect. In other words, in P combinations, common symbol distinct from the order relation symbols is sigma I and sigma J are allowed, and P star combination, such symbols by the order relation symbol are not allowed. So let's consider the following example. Let Mi, this is Q plus I plus Q, and linear order, be a linearly ordered structure for every I from omega without 0, where Q is the set of rational numbers. Obviously, Mi is an aleph 0 categorical or minimal structure for every I. Here, I, this is a finite order I. So I elements are discretely ordered. So this finite order Q plus finite order from I elements and plus Q. So let M prime be a linearly ordered disjoint P star combination of this structure ordered by omega. Consider the following formula. So phi 1 of x. Here, this is formula says about this is a formula distinguish all elements have immediate successor and immediate predecessor. Obviously, phi 1 of M prime is a union of infinitely many negation phi 1 M prime separable convex sets, whence M prime is not weakly or minimal. We also observe that the elementary theory of this structure is not almost omega categorical. So every structure we have omega categorical, but the P star combination here is not almost omega categorical. Next, so we have proposition next. So let Mi be a model of almost omega categorical weakly minimal theory Ti for each I. M prime be a linearly ordered disjoint P star combination of these models. Suppose that M prime is weakly minimal. So this is P combination is weakly minimal. Then Mi is dense for almost all I, but it is but finitely many structure in the combination M prime. And also we have the following theorem. Let Mi be a model of an almost omega categorical weakly or minimal theory Ti. M prime be a linearly ordered disjoint P star combination of these models. Suppose that M prime is weakly or minimal, then elementary theory of this combination is almost omega categorical. Okay, this is part 2, algebras of binary isolating formulas. So here let be a countable first order language. Everywhere we consider L structures, it assumes that L contains a ternary relation symbol that is interpreted as a circular ordering on these structures. So let M be a linear ordering. If we connect two endpoints of the linear ordered set, possibly that they are minus infinity plus infinity, then we obtain a circular ordering. More formally, circular ordering is described by the ternary relation K satisfying the following conditions. Here we four axioms. So the notion of weak circular minimality was originally studied jointly with Macpherson. Here also we consider let A subset of M where M is a circularly ordered structure. A set A is said to be convex if for any AB the following property holds. For any C from M with K, A, C, B, we have C belongs A. And for any C from M with K, B, C, A, we have C belongs A. A weakly circularly minimal structure is a circularly ordered structure such that any definable subset of M is a finite union of convex sets. Observe also that any linearly ordered structure is circularly ordered, and any weakly or minimal is weakly circularly minimal. The converse is not true. True. What? Here we have the following example. This example by Drost and others and Cameron. So let Qn star, this is Qn KL, be a circular ordered structure where L, this is n binary predicates, sigma 0, sigma n minus 1, for n greater than or equals 2, for which the following condition holds. First, the universe Qn is a countable densely ordered subset of the unit circle. No 2 points making an angle 2 pi k by n at the center where k ranges over integers. And second, for distinct xy from Qn, xy belongs sigma I if and only if argument of xy between 2 pi I by n and 2 pi I plus 1 by n, where argument xy denotes the value of the central angle between x and y clockwise. So it has been established before that this structure is countably categorical, weakly circularly minimal structure. But the structure is not, of course, is linearly ordered. Let's this about K transitivity and primitivity. So let M a countably categorical weakly circular minimal structure, and G, this is automorphism group of M. Following standard group theoretical terminology, we say the group G is K transitive if for any pairwise distinct A1, AK from N and pairwise distinct B1, B2, BK from N, there is G from G with G of AI equals BI for any I from 1 up to K. By a congruence on M, we mean a G invariant equivalence relation on M, and we say that this group G is primitive if it's one transitive and there are no non-trivial proper congruences on M. So also we have let M be a circularly ordered structure by two reduct on of M. We mean a circularly ordered structure with the same domain as M and having a relation symbol for each empty definable relation of M of arity at most 2, and also a ternary relation symbol K for circular ordering. but no other relation symbols of hierarchy. We say M is isomorphic to N up to binarity if the 2 reduct of M is isomorphic to the 2 reduct of N. Also this by a cut C of X in a securely ordered structure M, we mean a maximal consistent set of formulas of the form K, A, X, B, where A, B from M. A cut is said to be algebraic if there is a C from M such that realizes the cut. Otherwise, such a cut is said to be non-algebraic. So let C of X be a non-algebraic cut if there is an A from M such that either K, A, X, B from C, X for all B from M or K, B, X, A belongs C of X for all B of M, then C of X is said to be rational. Otherwise, such a cut is said to be irrational. So by a definable cut in M, we mean a cut C of X with the following properties. There are A, B from M such that K, A, X, B belongs C of X, and the set C from M such that K, A, C, B and K, A, X, S, A, X, C belongs C of X is definable. So definable completion M with hat of a structure M consists of M together with all definable cuts in M that are irrational. In a sense, M with hat consists of endpoints of the definable subsets of the structure M. So also we consider here convex to right formulas. Let fxy be an L formula such that fmb is convex infinite at so infinite set for every b from M. Let fl of y be a formula claiming that y is the left endpoint of the set fmy. We say that fxy is convex to right if we have this formula holds in M. If for some A from M, the condition definable closure of A equals A holds, then for any convex to right formula, fxy and any A from M, fma has no right endpoint in M. So we write f of y, the rent fmy, assuming that f of y is the right endpoint of the set fmy, which also lies in the definable completion M with hat of the structure M. Then f is a function mapping M in M with hat. So we have this we obtain some function, unary function, interpretable. And also we have equivalence relation, and this formula generates equivalence relation. So this is same as for linear ordering case. So this we have lemma 1. Let M be aleph 0 categorical 1 transitive weakly securely minimum structure, and let fxy be a convex to right formula that is equivalence generating that. Then exy fxy or fyx is an equivalence relation partitioning M into infinitely many infinite convex classes. Okay, this is about unary functions. Let f be a unary function on M with domain F where I is an open convex set. So we say F is monotonic to right or left on I if F preserves or reverses the relation K0. here K0, K0 XYZ, this is K XYZ, and Y is not equal X, and Y is not equal Z, and X equals Z. So it's strict circular relation. We say that a weakly circular minimal has convexity rank 1 if there is no definable equivalence relation having infinitely many infinite convex classes. Also here we have, so if E, X, Y be an empty definable equivalence relation partitioning M into infinite convex classes, suppose that Y lies in definable completion of M, non-necessarily in M. So we have the following formula: E star XY. This is like equivalence relation, but Y maybe does not belong in structure M, so in definable closure. So this, and if XY partitions M into finitely many infinite convex classes, Fxy is a convex right formula, Fy this is a rent Fmy, then consider the following formula: large phi Fk of X. So this is okay, this is F of X lies in the equivalence relation from the equivalence class of X through K classes. What about this? And we have the following characterization of Aleph 0 categorical 1 transitive non-primitive weakly circular mean structure of convexity rank 1. So let M this structure. Here we have definable closure of A is trivial. Definable closure of A equals A. So there is no unary functions in this structure for some A. Then M is isomorphic to one of the following structure up to binary. So first structure Mn prime. This is circularly ordered structure, densely ordered. E equivalence relation partitioning M into n infinite convex classes without endpoint. So for n greater than or equals to. Second structure M star prime. This is circularly ordered structure, densely ordered. Here we have binary predicate. This is convex right to formula such that Rma has no right endpoint and M, and R of Y, rent of Rmy is a monotonic to left. Monotonic to left. This is second. Third structure MnK3. This is circular ordered structure, densely ordered. E equivalence relation partitioning M into n infinite convex classes. R, this is convex to right formula such that Rma has no right endpoint, and R of Y, rent of Rmy is monotonic to right. And this is negation E star R of A, and there exists K greater than 0 with phi Rk of A for all A. This K plus 1 here divides N. So this is N greater than or equals 2. And fourth structure, this is also the same, but here this function R of Y is monotonic to left on each E class and is monotonic to right on M, this is quotient of E, equivalence relation E, and all the same, K plus 1 divides N, and N is even. And algebras of binary isolating formulas are a tool for describing relationships between elements of the set of realization of type at the binary level with respect to the superposition of binary definable sets. So by a binary isolating formula, we mean a formula of the form phi xy such that for some parameter a, the formula phi a y isolates a complete type in S over A. So in the work by Emelianov, Sodoplatov and me, algebras of binary related forms are described for countably categorical weakly circular with a primitive automorphism group. Here we consider the one transitive non-primitive case. And we have, first consider the structure M2 prime. M2 prime, we assert that this theory has four binary relations of x, y, y. Second formula, e, x, y, and x is not equal y, and y lies to left of x in this class. And theta 2, this is y lies to the first formula theta 1 lies to right, here lies to left second, and theta 3, this is negation exy is not belongs. So define labels for this formula as follows. So we have four labels because we have only four binary isolating formulas, and it can be checked that the Cayley table for this algebra has the following form. We have, by this Cayley table, we have this algebra is commutative. And we have the following results. Theorem 2, algebra P, M, N prime of binary isolating formula has n plus 2 labels and is commutative for all allowable values n. Algebra P, M star prime of binary isolating formula has 5 labels and is not commutative. So here we have not commutative algebra. And theorem 3, algebra P, M, and K 3 of binary isolating forms has n plus n by k plus 1 labels and is commutative for all allowable values and k. And also theorem 4, algebra P, M, and K4 of binary isolating formulas has n plus n by k plus 1 labels and is not commutative. And we have the corollary. Let M be a countably categorical one transitive non-primitive weakly circular minimal structure of convexity rank with trivial definable closure. Then the algebra PM of binary isolating form is commutative, and if and only if for any convex to right formula Rxy non-being equivalence relations, this function of this formula right endpoint of Rmy is monotonic to right on M. So I finished because there is no time. No? Thank you.
So yeah, okay. You have 2 minutes in case. Okay. Anyway, thank you for the speakers for the nice talk. Question? Any question? Comment? No questions? Then let's thanks for the speakers for the nice talk again. Thank you. Okay, so this is our last talk for this year's World Logic Days workshop. Thanks for all the speakers for the great, nice talk. And I will upload this video recording to our website. You can find out this recording on the the link where I sent it before. Okay. Do you have any comments for today's